This is Heroine Addiction, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and where doing things over is a common occurrence. I'm Isekai Sensei Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
I am now Xerxes Miserian. I'm starting a live journal. I'm getting aligned at Hot Topic.
Is your nickname XM?
Yes. Which is also my power set, Extreme Magic.
Well, as always, be sure to catch us on social media, which you can find links for on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. So today we're doing something special. Last time, or last two times technically, we had a unprecedented thing occur. We had a two-parter episode. Our biggest episode ever. Definitely the biggest series we've ever covered. Which did finally end. It was a couple weeks after, but the Villainess Lives Again is over. Hope everybody enjoyed that. It was a bit of a lackluster ending.
Oh, really? I was going to say, I haven't read it. I'm ashamed. But
it wasn't bad, but after everything that happened, it was sort of just like, wait, that's it?
Yeah.
Definitely feels like the kind of thing that needs side stories afterwards. But from what I've heard, that's not going to happen. So
yeah,
there are. I think what I read was there are side stories for the novel, but they're not going to get adapted. I guess because the artist was like, I'm so done with this.
Can't say I blame them. I mean, like years of their life have been spent doing that. So
yeah,
I can see wanting to work on new projects. It is a shame though, because there was a lot going on there.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed trying to parse the politics of that one.
Well, in a similar vein, years of our lives have gone into this podcast.
It's true.
And so it's finally time to do a revisit. So we have picked the first two series that we covered that have finished since we've covered them. So that is Kill the Villainess and Solitary Lady. We did Kill the Villainess. That episode released on July 11th, 2022.
Yeah. I was looking at that and I was listening to it because I was like, oh, I'll cheat, right? I won't reread everything from the beginning. I'll just listen to the episode. And I was like, I don't know who this man is that's speaking or where he gained this knowledge, but none of this is coming back to me.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I also re-listened to some of it. Sounded pretty good. We apparently we knew what we were doing.
Hey, we'd been going for a while by the time we started Heroine Addiction.
Yeah. Interestingly, the episode was only like 43 minutes long.
I was shocked by that. Yeah.
That changed very quickly, but
was this a pre-rubric world? It would have been, yeah.
It was, yeah. So the interesting thing there is Solitary Lady then, which, as I mentioned, was the next thing that we ever covered that has completed since we covered it. There's actually a couple before that haven't completed yet. We released Solitary Lady on June 12th, 2023. So nearly a year afterwards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And by that time, we did have the rubric. I did notice I had not put the rubric up on the episode post on the website. So while I was re-listening to that one, I grabbed the numbers. I did some work. I actually got the numbers and I put the table up there, so you can go back and check that one out. I'm sure there's other ones that have the rubric that I'll have to go and fill back in when we go back and cover those. So
I wonder, I have this perception, and I part of the reason that this was the first time I actually went back to check the data, I wondered if I had given Kill the Villainess a lower relative score. I seem to remember, I don't remember if I said it wasn't my thing or why I had a somewhat, like I didn't think it was bad, but I haven't thought any of them are bad. You're kind of only showing me the highlights here. But I remember thinking like, this was okay. This is a little edgelordy for me. And it's probably because she's like, I don't care if I live or die. I'm only trying to die. Screw you, popular kids. I no longer need you. But then like so I just had to reread almost the whole thing. I had no idea what was going on. So I reread the whole thing. And I wound up quite liking it this time.
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So I did check when we were doing that. I was still just rating them personally, without a rubric. And I have Kill the Villainess rated as an 8. So we'll have to see what happens when we actually rubric it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, an 8, that's pretty high. I obviously liked it. I did not reread the entire thing. To no one's surprise, I was reading them the entire time as they were coming out. So, I did finish them when the endings came out. But for this episode, I did go back and reread the last 10 chapters to make sure that I remembered what was going on. And I have to say, revisiting both of them was pretty interesting. I remembered some things from them, but actually reading again brought some stuff up that I was like, huh, okay.
I was rereading, so this is where I said it might be an interesting episode, because I think I may have like flipped on these a little. I think I had a more positive impression of Solitary Lady in that I feel like I might have started speed rating or something when we did Kill the Villainess, because I didn't remember it at all, but it also was longer ago. But Solitary Lady, I remembered the 4 houses, like the 4 courts, like spring, summer, or whatever. And I remembered all their powers and the vines and stuff and collecting the pieces of the god. And so I was like, I had spent all this reading time on Kill the Villainess, and I was like, okay, well, I could certainly pick up Solitary Lady from where I left off, and I did, and I was like, wow, this is like the joke about webcomics that jumped the shark. It's like we started off as 2 guys talking about video games, and now we're killing God.
Yeah. In more ways than one. Well, I think there's something to be said there, because when we recorded Kill the Villainous, and I don't know how far you were in, but I would have been at the current chapter that was coming out. The chapter that was out at that time was 44 or 45. And Kill the Villainous has a total of 102 chapters, which is actually, it ends on chapter 96, and then there's epilogue chapters after that. But those epilogue chapters are pretty important, so I'm counting those. In contrast, we recorded Solitary Lady, and you specifically said this in the episode, thankfully, so I didn't have to guess. Chapter 88 out of 125 total. So there's a stark difference in how much we had to look at before we recorded.
Never in a million years would have imagined I made it up to chapter 88. I was so confused when I came back to that one. Like I was confused by Kill the Villainous. I remembered almost nothing. I remembered none of the characters. But Solitary Lady, I was like, I thought I had a handle on this. Are we eating each other's blood? Is that what we're doing?
No, just the one person. Just the one person's blood.
And then I did kind of remember that. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She saved that guy from that. I was like, now why are you eating the tears now? Are the tears the blood? And then she just started killing people.
That was the best part.
And I was like, so I did back up. I would say I backed up, if I made it to chapter 88 or 80 anything, I backed up to probably about chapter 60 for that one. Then I felt like I was on pretty solid ground.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Starting 10 chapters from the end, it took me 2 or 3 chapters to actually remember what the heck was going on. So, well, we'll get into what the heck is going on then. What we're going to do, we're going to split these up a little bit because trying to talk about them at the same time is just going to confuse everybody, including ourselves.
Yes.
So we'll go over Kill the Villainess first. As always, I will start with the summary, even though I have read this summary before. You can go back and listen to the episode, which, surprisingly enough, I will encourage people to do. I was fully prepared to listen to some of that episode and feel super cringe, but turns out, yeah, it was all right. We did a pretty good job. So feel free to go back and listen to that. But I will read the summary again now. We'll go through the what we can discuss about the endings of these, and then we'll rubric each one. We'll rubric Kill the Villainess, and then we'll move on to Solitary Lady. All right, so I will kick us off here with this summary. See if this brings some nostalgia back from 2022. Eris Mazarian just wants to die. Being overworked and underappreciated in the real world wasn't great, but living as the villainess in a romance novel is even worse. If Eris can die in the novel, she might be able to return to reality, but the story won't let her. Desperate to escape a life as the protagonist's tormentor, she sets off on a journey with the help of a witch, a knight, and a high priest. Can she find her way back to her friends and family? Or is Eris doomed to a fictional future? Oh boy, she didn't need the help of that high priest, did she?
No.
He's so awful.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of actually forgot about him. Again.
I think he's, so this is Hubris, her half brother, something like that.
I had a feeling like maybe it's more subtle if hubris isn't a word in your actual language.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a problem with all of these Japanese and Korean things.
Yeah, I think English speakers are going to like clock what his deal is right away.
But like, I think he's set up to, he's supposed to be like a tragic character, but he also just makes the wrong choice every single time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all supposed to be kind of Greek tragedy, what with like Helena and Jason and Medea and...
Yeah. So actually, I have one note. In one of the epilogue chapters, the original person, I forget her name, but Eris, when she's back in her world, she mentions, having nightmares and stuff about her time there. And one of the things she says is, I wonder if that was just a Midsummer's Night Dream. Well, and I was like, I wonder, are they doing that on purpose? And so I'm not super familiar with the play, so I looked up a summary.
It's the fairy play with...
Right. There's not really a connection at all.
No, I think like Shakespeare wrote, like Julius Caesar and stuff, but like, yeah, I think he was pulling from Celtic fairy lore for Midsummer Night's Dream. That's the thing I get with all of these. They did a pretty good job of sticking mostly to the Greek stuff, but it was also not in like a Hellenistic period. It was in a medieval European period.
Yeah.
But I still liked it. I actually liked this one. I don't know if I picked up the first time I read it that it was an isekai. Now my words are out there, I guess, so something to compare. There's a little thing about podcasting. If you've never done it, or if you've never like recorded yourself and gone back to it later, there are times where like I'll be editing podcasts and somebody will say something and I'll be like, oh, I should have said this. And then 5 seconds later, I say it in the recording.
Yep.
And so like, I do not remember what I say. People interact with me sometimes as if I had just said it to them.
Yeah.
And I can pick up the conversation. So I have no memory. So I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but this time around, I definitely noticed that this is one of the few isekai where they want to go back to their world, and they continue to try to go back to their world the whole time.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think the original like the sort of the progenitor of isekai, where it's like hero summoned to another world to defeat the Demon King. You know, the very most standard version of it was always about fulfilling the mission so that they could go home. But very quickly, that all of that just evaporated, and it became like there's so few series now that the protagonist actually wants to go home. It's more about like, oh, I escaped the shitty life I had in Japan or in Korea, and now I get to live in this fantasy world, which I understand. I mean, it's a fantasy. But
Well,
there was this, the basis of it was, I want to go back. And so now, you know, reading this series specifically, I think this is actually sort of an even further stretch of that. It's not just a reversal of like back to the origins of isekai. It takes it further in like, no, this place sucks hard. I want to die. I don't just want to like appear back home. I literally want to die.
Well, yeah, and I liked that because I think the first time I read it, I remembered having this distinct impression that like Eris Miserian sounds like it should be surrounded by like XX Eris Miserian XX. It sounds like somebody's AOL Instant Messenger screen handle. I'm sure she has like My Chem lyrics in her away message. It's just very like my emo teen years. But it's then tempered somewhat with her slow. It's not that slow. It's 100 chapters long. I think, honestly, if it had been any longer, it probably would have stretched the concept further than it could really sustain.
Yeah.
But she's like, yeah, like my family favored my brother and I hated them for that. But they didn't favor my brother to like the point of entirely neglecting me.
Right.
Like they're not horrible people. They're flawed people and I miss them. And I'm allowed to, I think I could miss them. Yeah, and she's like, and I want to confront them about this, and I want to like try to solve these problems, and now I can't because I'm trapped in this other world with these just scheming, plotting nobles who suck. They all suck. I don't want any of them. And the knight that she winds up getting with is the plainest character, the plainest male character in the thing. And you don't see that ever either. Like, I was actually wondering if I should even get invested in the ship because he had, like, the least effort character design. Surely, if he was going to be around for a long time, they would have made him super pretty. Because she's super pretty. They don't often... I don't know. There's a lot of subverting my expectations. And maybe that was part of the problem is we had started this pretty early on, and I didn't know what expectations I should have.
Yeah, he's definitely not classically Otomi Isekai pretty. But
I mean, he's just
also,
some dude. Yeah.
He's not bad looking, obviously.
No, he's just got the bowl cut or whatever, and
I sort of wonder if that folds into this thought that I was having after rereading the ending of this, which is I'm wondering if just this entire thing was just a lesson about misogyny. Because like there's like 4 good characters in this other world and none of them are men except for Anakin. And he's sort of not a character. He really is just like her dog.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that's sort of the point, is that it's going like men suck except for when they just obey you completely.
I think there might be a little bit of the knight protector kind of fantasy in there. I don't know if the author is consciously trying to say anything about like men should be seen and not heard. But I do think there is a rejection of all this politics and gamesmanship and all these bullshit power struggles. And there is certainly a not so subtle feminist message about, like, I would say, like, especially with the witches.
Yeah.
Like, the way one becomes a witch is through extreme suffering to the point where the law of causality in the world just breaks for them. And she points out that, like, while it's not impossible for that to happen to a man, it seldom does, because they enjoy such privileged positions that they usually can't reach the rock bottoms that a peasant woman is capable of reaching, because she has no rights and no value.
Yeah.
And so there is, the author's definitely a feminist, definitely conscious of those ideals and playing with it for sure, and playing with the ideas of privilege in general. Yeah, I think I don't know when this was written. I don't know how big Otome Isekai was for how long at this point, if it was like purposely written to try to question or engage in conversation with some of the tropes. Looking back on it now, it certainly does do that, because it almost seems, Kill the Villainess almost seems kind of critical of the Otome Isekai fantasy, like the typical one. Not in a bad way. It's obviously written by somebody who appreciates it very much, who has spent a lot of time reading the genre, but they're pulling out a few threads here where it's like, no, actually, like, this is all pretty terrible. Like, the world we came from is not necessarily worse.
Right. And like getting married to the prince and being the queen or empress is not the good ending.
Yes. And sometimes it's just about marrying a guy who appreciates you. That's really the only, I think maybe that's what they're going for with him more, is the only thing he can really offer her. He has no money, he has no position, there is no benefit to marrying him whatsoever. In fact, it would be the dumbest thing a noble lady could do, is to marry her knight. And yet, like, right from the get-go, that's kind of the only guy she wants. And that's why I think it says something about him being plain, because obviously the art starts shaky and gets better. That's one thing I did notice going back and reading the whole thing. But those guys are all designed to be like, you've got the platinum blonde prince, you've got the fiery redhead, you've got the exotic priest, and none of those guys. She hates all of them.
Yeah.
Just like right off the bat, hates all of them.
I definitely think that they were made to sort of play off of the standard male lead setups.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's something as a guy coming into Otome Isekai, maybe I enjoy when those tropes are subverted a little more, because I'm not I'm not getting as much out of the pure romantic fantasy. Like, I don't want to marry that prince. I can be invested in their relationship because I like when a main character I relate to is happy. But like the fetishistic or female gaziness of it doesn't do anything for me the way it probably does for most of the audience. So I've liked things like, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but what was the one with the where the Cold Duke of the North has a beard and he has scars and
Yeah. I'm blank.
not another typical fantasy romance?
Yes,
Was that
that's
one?
right.
I like that one a lot because it's a different kind of male character, and even this guy, even though he's kind of like personalityless, he's different. He's saying something different about the male side of the relationship, and that always gives me something to think about that I like. And I was, like I said, I was surprised by the end when they both go back to her world. I have never seen an isekai do that. I don't know if you have in your vast experience, but
Yeah. It's
where they take a character from the other world back with them.
I have a vague sense in my head that I have seen that at least once before, but I'm blanking on the details of it. So
I think the closest I've ever gotten in my experience is, I think in Log Horizon, one of the NPCs becomes a player somehow. Like they turn him into a player. I always enjoy that. But I also enjoy, there's one other thing that really worked for me about Kill the Villainess, and I don't know if I was just in a bad mood or, again, if the name Eris Mazarian was just too much for me to overcome the first time. But I was like, I did start to enjoy the trope. I don't know what you would call this, but it's something I enjoy in a lot of different shows and stuff, and it usually happens in kids stuff. Because I was recently going back to, for Words About Books, Animorphs, and it happens in Animorphs. I enjoy when characters who have a somewhat shallow life suddenly experience something that gives them perspective, and then they're continuously juxtaposed with people from their old life, and they just don't care about it anymore. They just see how like shallow and this doesn't matter. There's aliens coming to destroy the earth. This doesn't matter. There's like, I just want to die and get out of this world. You're all characters in a novel. And this is the first one where like you're all just characters in a novel thing really did click. Cause she's like, I don't know if you guys are real. And I'm not even interested in trying to find out. I don't care. I don't want to be here. You have nothing to offer me. You have nothing to hold over me. And there is just something so satisfying about watching. And this is probably because, like, as you might guess, being a middle-aged man reviewing comic books, I maybe wasn't, like, the coolest kid in school. And there's just something satisfying about the people who really, like, flourish in the world of the tense social hierarchies of high school and high society.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about because I was the coolest kid in my high school.
Were you? You were homeschooled. My sister sucked.
We weren't in high school at the same time.
But yeah, there's just something so satisfying about watching people who really succeed at the parts of life that are often so important, suddenly just zoom out the perspective and like everything they care about doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And her just constantly telling them like, then kill me. Try. I dare you. None of you can do it.
I think this circles back around to my thought about this just being a lesson about misogyny. Like, there's so much in here where no matter what she does, these people are drawn to her despite her rejections. She tells them over and over again, go away. I don't like you. I don't want you around. And especially the redheaded idiot is just like, even when Anakin is dealing with her body at the end so that they can't resurrect her. And he's like, she could still change her mind. It's like, you stupid son of a bitch.
And it's not that they like her despite her rejections. I think they like her because of her rejections. And that's how those and now I've fully gotten on board. Now I'm inside her head. It is me in high school now. I am XX, Eris Miserian XX. And if you totally ignore people like that, they will find ways to get your attention because, no, you don't ignore me. I ignore you.
Yeah, right.
And it bothers them. And I think that's what it was too. Like that could be the statement on the, I don't know if it's a statement on misogyny or just like a certain kind of male ego, but yeah, there's definitely that guy who will not, and that girl, I think it happens with both. They will not pay attention to you unless you're mean to them because they're curious about how you could even conceive of not liking them.
Well, right. But I think that's sort of like one of the core components of misogyny in that, men are superior and women are meant to be subservient and like these delicate things that we take care of. And then you're supposed to take care of me, and my emotional needs and all that kind of stuff. And so a woman who rejects you and ignores you, like it doesn't fit into their perspective, of what the world is.
No, I can see that.
How could this lesser being ignore me like that when I'm trying to give them my attention? Obviously, they should be so grateful for that.
I'd also say there's an element of some kind of, probably misogyny in that she's the disposable scapegoat for all the terrible deeds of the men in her life, like the older men in her life, especially the emperor and her father. They're untouchable. So the crimes they've done against the prince and his mother, the prince and the mother are trying to take out all their revenge on Eris because she's worthless in that society, or literally worth less than.
And I guess there's this extra component here of like, as a woman, the only power that she can actually wield to seriously injure these powerful men is with her death. Like,
yeah, it's all about her body. It's like, if I kill me, then I guess you can't take my lands, you can't take my holdings. I don't have any of those things.
Yeah, even the Empress was powerless, but to take herself out with the Emperor, and so I think it stays a tragedy. I mean, it was obviously a tragedy the whole time, but like the tragedy of even in winning, she still has to lose to win.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if you remember, but based on my quick reread, I think the only person who ever asks her about herself is her knight.
Yeah, well, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah. And I think that's the one thing is like he's the only person. She did him a favor. He does her a favor. Like he gives her loyalty in exchange for the favor. Like he did. I think she comes to him barefoot and he gives her shoes or something. He didn't have to do that. And she repays that favor by making him a knight. And then they continue to go back and forth. I think their relationship, she does push his buttons, or she tries to push his buttons a little with like the dog collar, literally giving him a dog collar at one point. But at
which
the same
he asked
time,
for again in Korea, and she's like, "What are you, stupid? No, we're gonna get
I did that to humiliate
rings.
you. Come on." But that kind of
He's like,
choker,
I'm into that.
that kind of choker is worn by women. Like I've seen that be a gift to women, like that kind of choker. And so like, why is it demeaning for a man but not for a woman? And it's because they're allowed to be collared. Like it's I think it's playing with power dynamics. I think it's,
the only character, the only woman or women in this series who actually have power over men are the witches, who are literally using magic.
well, and that's why, I mean, you can ask a witch historically. That's why they would say witches have been hated, is because they're, when a woman is feared by a man, she is a witch. Only by having some supernatural disadvantage could you be smarter or more powerful than me.
This is definitely about misogyny. I'm claiming that
at the very
as a
least,
man, I am claiming that this author was writing about misogyny.
Well, I think at the very least there is certainly feminist philosophy underpinning a lot of what goes on.
Yeah,
I think she definitely has some things about the otome isekai genre that she likes, some things about the otome isekai genre that she does not like.
Yeah.
And is talented enough to create a really good story where she can communicate a lot of these ideas and make you debate them and figure them out for yourself. And she doesn't, I will say the witch thing where they're like, men don't usually experience that much misery. It's like, that's the closest it comes to being like a little too on the nose, but it was funny in that moment because of the way that witch acts. Like, she's just blunt and she's saying it almost specifically to the knight. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Sounds right to me. But yeah, I think I like it. I think it's a little smarter than I gave it credit for.
I think there's also something in here where the comeuppance that the antagonist males get is on the surface actually not that bad. So like the prince, he was pretty much the worst. In case you didn't know this, he tried to rape Eris at some point, which she murdered him, which was fun, but that really hurt her that she got messed up from that and had to reverse time because obviously she couldn't murder the prince and get away with it. But he gets to be king or emperor, and he gets to be with Helena as his empress at the ending. And his punishment in all of this is that she doesn't really love him anymore. So she's just going to be empress. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess the one thing that he actually wanted was to be, have her love. But like, also, he's still there. Like, she's still with him. Like, that doesn't seem like enough of a punishment. And then the redheaded knight, who I refuse to look up his name, screw him.
Jason.
Shh. His punishment is, well, and the witch didn't, Medea didn't really punish him in this way, but his punishment from the dragons is that he has to live forever. And I'm just like, are you serious?
It's a slow burn punishment.
And well, yeah, and they point out that they're like, oh, everyone he loves will die and he'll be alone and everything. But it's like, have you ever met an immortal person? They just find new people.
They're assholes. No, actually, Brad, I have not met an immortal person.
So that's also, I'm just like, that's not really that much of a punishment. I mean, and then with hubris, where it's like, oh, he lost all his divine power and he has to live as an old man. Okay, so, oh no, he still gets to live that long, and he's a normal person. Oh, how horrible. I'm just like, this is even when they lost, they didn't really lose the same way that the women who lost things lost.
Well, and I think, well, you might be onto something there then with the misogyny, the feminist take is that world does suck. And
Yeah.
and I think you could be onto something with it exists in conversation with the rest of the Otome Isekai genre. Because and honestly, it could be, you don't know with web novels, it could be like sequel bait. There's a story still yet to be told of now that Eris is gone, who takes up, who becomes the next female leader.
Well,
in this.
Quinta is going to be the god of that world.
Yeah, but will Helena do anything?
Well, that's a good point, because like they show like, okay, she comes back to life, and then she's like, oh, I'm so glad that Eris escaped and can be happy. And then she's like living in a loveless marriage, and it's just like,
Well, and I think that was the thing. Like Eris kept telling her, like, you got to stand up for yourself. You got to stand up for yourself. Don't let people walk all over you. Be in this. It's the criticism of like the saintess character.
yeah.
Of the one who everybody's supposed to love because all she does is love, and she's the perfect little idol. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of like that it was rough around the edges. I kind of like that it has an unsatisfying end. So does life. Screw you. That's very kill the villainous of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes
that's true.
It's my bag is it's a Lord of the Rings versus George R.R. Martin kind of world.
There is there's a part of this where I'm sort of just going, I don't understand what that was all about, because there's this underlying story that's the actual fantasy story that's happening here with like the dragons, and like one of the dragons died, and so they had to pull in Eris from the other world in order to have this being that was out of the world that was fulfilling some role or something like that. There's all this undercurrent of magic and dragons that's occurring that I did not get a satisfying explanation for.
Okay, if you want to talk about this would be where I like jump off and be like, if you want to talk about magic not making sense, now we can talk about Solitary Lady. Yeah, I don't know if the magic is just there in this one to move things along.
And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. It's just that a lot of the core components of like why anything is happening is because of that magic stuff. Like with the dragons, the dragon souls and all that kind of stuff. And at the end, they even go so far as to start to talk about it, and then you get like no actual explanation.
So I did read some comments that said, and in this case, I think it was maybe a good cut. The novel goes into a lot more detail about a lot more things.
That would make sense.
And one of them is that the novel actually spends a lot of time on the process of the knight waking up in the new world. And like he wakes up in a hospital. He was some guy who was in a coma. His parents are like, "Oh my God, you're back." And he's like, "I'm not your son. I got to leave." And yeah, I was like, yeah, it's maybe they made the right call just snipping that part out of the story. I don't know. There's certainly room for a sequel. I will say, if I was Eris, man, how hard do you get to work on achieving nirvana and breaking the cycle of reincarnation? Because the whole rest of my life, I'd just be like, can't end up back there.
Yeah, right.
You know for a fact reincarnation's a thing. Gotta figure this out.
Well, I mean, I don't think she went there because she was a bad person. So I don't even know how that would work.
No, you got to get out. You got to get out of the stream.
Well, I think in the interest of not droning on forever. The first episode was 43 minutes long. I think we've talked about this for about 40 minutes now.
We finally made it as long as it should have been.
So I think we should rubric.
All right.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. I think it's fair to say that this will be including romance.
Okay.
I'm not sure how it wouldn't, because Eris and Anakin ending up together is like the whole point.
Yeah.
Well, besides, I want to die, but all right. So as always, you can find our interactive rubric on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. So you're welcome to rubric along with us. We've yet to have someone rubric and share it with us. I'm still waiting for that day. All right. So kicking things off, content and ideas. Oh boy, this is. I'm reading the note of what a 4 and a 5 are, and I'm on the fence.
I'm going to go with a 5. Because I think, if anything, it's like too many ideas. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things she wanted to get across in this world and these characters. And I think sometimes the characters maybe actually suffer because they're more roles than characters, though she's trying to maybe play that as like a meta thing of like they are just people in a crappy novel, and it was supposed to be not even a very good novel. So I'll go with a 5 because I'm focusing here on the lasting impact. And while I could remember absolutely nothing of this from the first time, I think I will remember it now. I think that ending, maybe even because it's unsatisfying in some ways, like that's a bold choice.
Yeah.
It will pay for this in other areas, though, because there are flaws.
I have a feeling that if we had rubric the first time, if that had been something that we knew how to do when we had started, I think this might have been a 3 at that point. But yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that like this is a very slow burn. And I think you sort of need the whole thing to get the clear picture.
Yeah.
To that end, I think I agree. I think it's a 5 for content and ideas, which I was on the fence about because there are some things in here, like I said, with the magics and the dragons and stuff that I was like, I'm not sure that they're developed enough. I don't think we got quite enough, but everything that wasn't fully developed was definitely secondary to what the actual point of the story was. So realistically, this is like a 4.5, but I think that the good parts of this are good enough that it gets the bump up instead of the bump down.
Yeah.
Now, that said, moving on to pacing and structure, I think I'm going to go with a 4 on that, though.
Yep. I also went with a 4 on that. I think it's a challenging one because while you might want more of the magic and more of the world developed, I'm sure that would add length, and I'm just not sure how you would fit it naturally into the story because you almost need another character. You need to give something to the knight because Eris is just so painfully uninterested in this world.
Yeah.
That you're not really going to... She's the fish out of water character who should be learning this stuff. And she's not experiencing it. So...
I almost feel like the fact that the issues I have with content and ideas, where I would have rated this lower at the first time we went over this, is the reason why pacing and structure gets a lower score, because it takes almost the entire length of the story to get to a point where you go, oh, this is bang on. This is so good.
Yeah.
You have, like, it's not necessarily bad at the beginning, but like there's some key pieces that you don't get inklings of until close to the end. And so I think as far as the structure of it, the pacing in this regards to the story itself, there could have, and I say this not actually knowing how it would work, but I feel like there's got to be some way to introduce something earlier that would have made it so you could clearly see the content and ideas being excellent earlier on.
Yeah, I think we certainly had a little bit of time. There's some wiggle room to do foreshadowing and stuff.
Yeah.
I think a 4 is fine. I think a 4 is honestly maybe generous.
I'm being a little bit generous there because I think that chapter to chapter, like within the chapters and within smaller subsets of chapters, the pacing and structure is really good. Like, it's done really well. I think the adaptation that they did, because this is obviously a difficult thing to do for any manhwa adaptation of a novel, to like fit things within chapter lengths and figure out where to cut things and where to end a chapter to have either a good cliffhanger or, you know, putting enough information in and everything. That's a difficult task. And I think they did do a good job of that at the beginning. Obviously, at the beginning, like I said, I rated this an 8 the first time. Like, I really enjoyed it even halfway through. So they obviously did a good job. It just wasn't quite enough to be like, this is perfect.
Yeah, but I also think that one thing that counts in its favor is the relatively short length of the series. They didn't try to milk it for more than it was worth.
Yeah. Which is interesting to say after we just covered a 225 chapter series, which actually didn't feel like it was too long somehow.
This one would have. This one doesn't have the scheming, the plotting.
Right. There's definitely something to be said of something being as long as it needs to be.
Yep.
All right. So, moving on to characters. This is difficult for me because I hate so many of the characters, but also that's sort of the point.
I went pretty low on the characters because this is where I think it suffers a little. Like, I'm actually going like a 3.
So, just to be clear here, we couldn't possibly get to a 5 on this because the criteria here is characters feel like they could be real people. The reader finds it easy to relate to them and empathize with them as they navigate the plot. The only person who feels real in this is Eris herself.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, on purpose, but also it's a detriment to characterization.
It's kind of undermined when she chooses to bring the male lead back with her.
Yeah.
Like, if they're just supposed to be cardboard cutout characters from a book, then how is one the love of her life? Like, what does that say?
Yeah. About the real her.
Yeah. So I think, I don't think that's entirely what she was going for. I think they were probably supposed to be realistic, but many of them come off as kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah. I don't know that I would go so far as to say many of them, but more than you'd want. Because even I think even the men that are terrible, you do get enough of a backstory for most of them. Like I was talking about earlier with Hubris, where it's like we get some of his backstory to sort of inform us, like, why is he a shit person like this? Like, they do explain that stuff. They do go into detail. So while it doesn't absolve him, it doesn't make you like him, it does explain a lot of the reasoning behind it. And for a 4, distinct and interesting characters are established and developed. The interactions drive the story and create interesting drama. Like, I mean, that's sort of exactly what this is, right?
The only thing I would say where I'm not going up to a 4 is the backstories where I feel bad for the characters. They feel like, I don't know, I feel like I've read them in every Otome isekai.
That's
like,
fair. Yeah.
I see this same, like, oh, you want a character to feel sympathetic? Well, their parent tells them, my life was awesome before you should just die. It's like I've seen that 16 times now, and you didn't take any time to develop it. Now I don't know how it's told in the book, but it's told in like maybe 2 or 3 pages in this. We just get the whole tragic backstory because you already know it. You don't need it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing is like they're kind of like stock standard backstories of like they're almost stuff you could just pull out of like the D&D tragic backstories section for your character. And I don't think it really explains their behavior so much. Like, especially the priest. I find the priest is weird. He seems like almost an afterthought character a lot of the time. The redheaded guy is I don't even really know what his deal was supposed to be some of the time. But I like Eris a lot. If it was just Eris, I'd be fine. But what was her boyfriend's name? Anakin. How could I forget? Yeah. Which I really hope that's something from a dictionary somewhere and not a Star Wars reference.
Well, no one was named Padme, so I think it's okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna go with 4 for characters, but I don't think that a 3 is wrong. So
No, I don't think this is egregious.
okay. Well, gonna lose some points on this next one. Romance. So,
I'm between a 3 and a 4. I think I'm leaning 3.
I think I'm also going with a 3 on this one. The romance between Eris and Anakin, it got me a couple times, but like overall, because of the nature of just like him being a fucking golden retriever, I'm just like, this doesn't feel real or interesting most of the time.
There is this scene I remember that I did not understand where the two, the prince and the redhead, or Jason, yeah, the prince and the redhead are fighting over Eris, and Eris says, Anakin, carry me. And he picks her up and she walks, like he walks away with her in his arms. And that's supposed to be like a power move for her. And it was like comedically funny. I mean, like it was like perfect comedic timing. Like you do not look powerful being princess carried away from a situation. I'm sorry. She could have said, Anakin, escort me. And it would have worked.
Put me on your shoulder.
Yeah.
I'll sit on your shoulder.
It's
walk
that
away.
scene from the Mage Exam in Frieren where they're like, you got to carry me on your back. You know, it's So that was one where I was like, I don't fully understand how these people court one another. That was probably that, and the fact that he just has no personality. She likes him because he likes her, which is fine. I mean, hey, that's plenty of.
I think this falls into the category of she's never had a real relationship with anybody, romantic or otherwise. And so the first person who shows her kindness and does things for her, she falls in love with.
Well, you're stuck now because you guy world hopped for you. So.
Yeah. Well, but they, even in the epilogue, they show that like her real life isn't very good either, and she's disconnected from everybody. So she needed him.
Yeah.
Well, can't win them all. And you also can't win art competency.
No. No. It's a 3. It's for me it's a 3. It's fine. It does get better, but it's just fine. There's no major mistakes. No major anatomy problems, but
this is difficult for me because I've consistently rated things that do a standard style but do them well as a 4. And I feel like that's where we're at here. It's not doing anything interesting, but like it is competently executing the standard.
that's the definition of a 3. Three is you're doing all right.
Fine. You're right. Damn it. All right, well, I'm giving it a 4.
Think of a 3 as meets
artistic
expectations.
flourish. I'm going to give it a 4 for flourish.
Okay.
I think it's doing enough of the interesting camera angles and the transitions from scene to scene and that kind of stuff. I think it's doing a good job there.
I think I'm also at a 3 for the visual style. I think this is actually somewhat held back by the art, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm not this could be a controversial one. I don't know if people love the art for this, but this isn't one of the ones where I was like, oh man, look at the dresses. Oh, look at the fashion. Oh, look at there's not a lot. This is just, it's a webtoon. Looks like every other webtoon.
But it's like they did the webtoon good. Like they did
I definitely think it looks like the work of, a professional artist.
Yeah.
But if everybody else I rate is also a professional artist, so it's I'll be honest, I didn't really care for the art for this one. I don't super love the webtoon style, so that could be some of my bias.
The thing for me with that is that like I feel like the style doesn't detract from anything, because there's things that an artist can do to be like, I'm going to have this new and interesting style, and that's cool. But then like, if they don't execute it perfectly all the time, it actually detracts from things. I think it's a safe bet.
This. I'll go up to a 4 on a technicality here because I wrote in the criteria for a 3. No effort was made to go the extra mile, and I don't think that's true.
Oh, there you go.
I do think that they did make the effort to make the dramatic moments more dramatic, and
so it's a 3.5 rounding up.
But I'll go to a 4. I can go that far. I will say, like they did, there's obvious effort on display, and I probably do have a bias against the webtoon style.
I don't think that's wrong. I think your opinion on that is perfectly valid, which you've obviously explained thoroughly. I prefer that a story that I'm invested in is being done is being drawn in a way that they can do consistently as to not detract from the story.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. You don't want to have to. It is worse to switch artists sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to do the most important one, which is personal preference.
4.
Okay.
I'm very positive. I could think of some improvements, but overall, I like it.
I'm also going with a 4. This is one where I sort of feel like I would want to give it a 5, but there's enough in here that is like not my thing, because I'm not really into the really depressing stuff. And so while I really enjoyed it, and I think it was well done, and I think it was interesting, and I think there's, good conversation to be had here about its portrayal of misogyny and all that kind of stuff. It's not the kind of thing that like I really want, like I don't want to revisit it again, Like what we're doing right now is obviously important because it's over now, and it was not even halfway when we covered it the first time, but like it's not something where now that it's over, in a year or two, I would go, oh, right, that thing. I'm going to go read that again.
Yeah, for me, I think I like it. It's, I like it when it's, I mean, this is going to sound, more insulting maybe than I mean it to be. I like it when things are, smart. I like it when there's a little bit of a clear philosophy present. And well, I don't know if I'd say the whole thing's about misogyny. I do think there is a feminist angle that gives you something to think about, and it kind of worms its way into your brain, and it's also, by the way it uses tropes, critiquing other otome isekai, I guess tropes, to use the same word again, but this is my fault for saying I like things that are smart. But yeah, I think it's doing something here, and I like that. I would definitely, I don't know if I'd rush out to read it again, having read it kind of twice now.
Yeah.
I would be interested to read something by the same author, though. I'd like to see where they go in the future, because I think they have a voice and I think they have something to say.
Well, I see one more series out there. It's older than this, so you could check it out.
I hope they keep writing.
Interestingly, that's weird. It seems like maybe this is not actually the same person. This might not be correct, because the older series is a manga. So something's not right there. Anyway.
Cross-cultural.
Well, moving on to recommendation strength.
Also a 4. I think I can see why this is really popular in the otome isekai community, and I think you do probably want to have some otome isekai background going into it, but I also think if you would be just interested in reading like a kind of edgy webtoon, it's also pretty decent.
Yeah, I almost wonder though, because I sort of want to say everybody should read this because you should confront your own biases as far as, misogyny are concerned.
I could see it. I don't think this is on the list of, it's on the short list of things I would recommend to a newbie coming into otome isekai.
I think I'm gonna stick with a 4 as well though, because it's like, yeah, I would probably recommend this to people who are new to it or people who I think could latch on to the message and everything, but it's probably not most people.
In my head, I imagine recommending stuff to people because I have recommended a lot of things to a lot of people. And there's different barriers you got to cross. So, like, to get somebody who doesn't read comic books to read a comic book, that's a 5 to me.
I almost feel like for this particular rubric, we sort of just have to hand wave away that you've already
You've crossed the comic
you've crossed
barrier.
that hurdle, because like they're all comics. Like we have to just ignore that. But then that also does, sort of
There
leave
are
out the fact
ones
that there are ones that you
yeah.
would go, yes, you should read this even if you hate comics.
Or I think this might make you understand why people like comics, even if it's not going to make you a comic book fan. Because I have gotten, like, my mother, who only reads mystery novels, to read a comic book. Granted, it had to be like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic about a vampire in the future, but, like, I got her there.
You should see if you can get her into Otome Isekai.
Nah, she's not going to do this. She's going to come to the reincarnation point and magic and stuff, and she's going to be like, this is dumb, that doesn't exist. If there's an Otome Isekai out there that has a really solid murder mystery, maybe I could try to get my mom to read it. But that's what it would take.
There's gotta be something. All right, well, there it is. You've completed this. I have ended up at a 77.
I'm at a 74.
I think 77 keeps me at an 8 out of 10. So I got it right the first time.
I'm willing to round up a 74. I mean,
74. That's on the fence. I would say that's probably still a 7 out of 10, but on the higher side, you're definitely close enough that you could wiggle around to get to an 8, but no cheating.
I don't rate.
You bumped up artistic flourish. You've already done that.
I don't rate things on Bato, so don't worry. I'm not hurting anybody.
Well, all right, there it is. We've completed Kill the Villainess. It only took 3 years.
It's not our fault. Some of these go on for quite a while.
Well, let's be fair. The last chapter of this came out over a year ago. So it sort of is our fault. All right. Well, any closing thoughts about Kill the Villainess before we move on to the comedy portion of the podcast?
Yeah, no, just in general, I liked it. I liked it more on a second read, and I think maybe other people would too. If they fell off of it before it was finished, maybe give it another go.
This one definitely benefits from having the whole thing to start with and just being able to go the whole way through it and not having to wait. And 100 chapters, 102 chapters, not that much. You could get through this in a week without, pushing yourself. And I think, someone with maybe a little less time, if they strung it out over a month, I think this would be a nice read. A couple chapters a day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now it is time to move on to Solitary Lady. So I will kick us off by rereading the summary. I should go back and find the original recordings for these. I have them on my hard drive somewhere, and see how much I screwed up on the summary reads. I will brag here. The summary read that I just did for Kill the Villainess, I got through in one take.
That's true.
That's how good I am now. And now that I've said that, I will screw up this read.
You've become Hubris the priest.
Noblewoman Hillis Innoden has many lives so far, 7 to be exact, but she has always been regarded the same in all of them, meek, submissive, and a pest. But in her 8th resurrection, she no longer bends to the nobles that encircle her, nor does she continue to live in the shadows of her wicked brother and half-sister. With a sacred power passed down from her lineage and the title of family head, she sets out for revenge and to change the grave destiny that awaits her.
I don't know if the people of life number 7 thought she was meek.
That's true. I didn't read back far enough to get all the timelines in order. I do remember that being somewhat of an issue of trying to keep track of which life she did what things in.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an issue for me. This one kind of has it's an Otome Isekai that kind of has the same plot as like the new Evangelion movies to an extent. Like
Okay.
It's not really the same plot, but like wow, did this go far?
Before we dive into that, I do want to point out I think I mentioned this at the beginning. We did rubric this one the first time. I think this was 2 or 3 into actually doing the rubric. We were talking about changing some things and as the rubric was new and stuff. But we did rate this one without romance a 73. So that's what it's got to live up to.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, it's so let me sum up what I understand happened, right?
Okay.
So when we last left off, she was like collecting all the pieces of the divine. Because like there was this divine being who was originally betrayed by the heads of the 4 noble families, and they each ate a piece of his heart, and that's why they have powers sometimes. And her family ate the largest piece of the heart, and so they inherit the majority of his divinity,
The core.
and she has an opportunity now to become God. And she collects all the fractured divine essences, and
I would actually say it's not so much of an opportunity as she was forced to.
a mandate to become God.
Original God, who's dead but not dead, tells her that she has to collect all of his pieces so that he can make her God, so that she can kill him, so that she can reset the universe.
And then she does reset the universe. Spoilers. But she tries to remove herself from it and create a happiness for her beloved. Oh, what's his name?
Axion.
And that's what I was making fun of when I said Xerxes. Her beloved Axion. And it turns out in order for him to be happy, she must exist. And so she gets a spot in the new perfect world as well. And
She gets a spot in the perfect world that she literally created.
she didn't want to be in it. She was done. She was ready to check out. And also she starts mowing people down at one point. Like she's got those thorn powers, and she's just like shoving thorns through people and shooting roses out the other end. And it's like, it gets really violent and really intense. And I don't think this isn't an Otome Isekai after a certain point. This is just like, this became like the Otome, like Full Metal Alchemist or Evangelion. This got
Well,
weird.
so the isekai portion of this is the reincarnation part. So as opposed to, traveling to another world, which if you've listened to the rest of our podcast, you will know not technically an isekai, but it's an isekai adjacent trope. So we just lump it together.
Well, the thing is, they're not even like really like regressing in the standard isekai sense. They're trapped in a time loop designed to curse and torture them.
Well, I don't, not quite, because the curse that was placed on the families was more along the lines of these sort of specific things that go with their families, like the Vergets. So Axion's family is like their curse is to be destroyed by the thing that they love, or to lose it, or something like that. And then the the ice people, like their curse is that they'll be destroyed by their greed, or
but her family's
lust for
curse
power.
was they wanted immortality, and now they're stuck in a time loop, unable to die.
Well, that's fair, but I think that only happened because the divine essence got distilled down enough to sort of manifest itself through Hillis. And so she just happened to be the one in line that reached the end. And the end conclusion was, you have to fix all this or you'll just keep going back.
Yeah. There's nothing there. I don't have a ton to say about this one now that I've seen the ending, other than I like the ending.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of do. I like, even when we reviewed it the last time, I think this one was starting to go off the rails a little bit. Because I like all the powers and stuff, and I think I remember saying this was one of the first times that the protagonist, the female lead, had like a lot of agency and physical power to move through the world. She didn't have to plot and scheme. She was just like, I'll vine whip your throat.
Yeah, but then like she sort of loses her agency at the end, because very close to the end, as she's getting more and more of the bits of the divine stuff, like she gets all of her like emotions removed.
Yeah.
Which sort of is a removal of agency to some degree.
Yeah.
Because then it just becomes very like robotic in like, this is, I'm just moving towards my goal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's not like there's not really free will about it anymore.
This one, I would say, it reminds me of so many weird, like esoteric, borderline occult anime that have that weird, like they go way, way, way deep into the lore. You meet God. There's like all this stuff going on about philosophy and truth and the divine, and then it all resets. Everybody's happy. That's the end. Yeah. And it's usually like it always feels like a tacked on end of like, the studio made me add that it's happy, but it's not happy. Well, existence is pain.
You have all that, but then like what it comes down to is that, besides the fact that there was this sort of curse that was existing, the primary antagonist of all this was just one of the cousins from the Kalika who was pissed off that the person he loved is dead. And so he's like, I'm going to destroy the world. It's like,
yeah,
this sort of is a distillation of my entire issue with the end of this, which is like, it's all just a huge mess. And literally everything that happens right before the end doesn't matter at all. Because the second she gets the last piece of the divine, she's like, poof, all of it's gone. I've reset everything. Now the families didn't have those crazy powers, but everybody still is alive who was alive then. and they live very similar lives just without magic powers. And it turns out Axion still loves me even though he's never met me, and he should be a completely different person.
That's why I'll compare it to Evangelion. Like, the original anime for Evangelion, I think they ran out of budget or they almost got canceled or something. And the last 2 episodes are Shinji just like deciding like, oh, I can live in this world. Everything is okay now. And then a few years later, the end of Evangelion comes out and it's specifically intended to replace the final 2 episodes. And he's like, it's not fine. He's not going to be happy. I'm going to watch. God is going to bleed into the ocean and the head will be the size of the moon. Like, and that's what this feels like. Is there's just so much weird off the cuff rage at the end. I mean, I'm with you. This is going to score very high on personal preference for me and very low on all the parts of it where it has to make sense.
The thing that got me, because we spend I reread the last 10 chapters just to make sure that I had a grasp on everything that was going on, which, to be fair, maybe I should have reread the whole thing because of the time loop stuff to understand that. But like, again, we get to the end and none of it mattered. Obviously, there's some amount of it that matters in Hillis going through these things, but we spend so much time with other characters. What is it? Violetta, the Kalika, the person who becomes the head, right there at the end with the one daughter, the Montana daughter, and Terzo and all that stuff going on, and they have this big dramatic thing, and he kills the Montana girl and then himself, and she's like, oh my, and Violetta's like, oh my God, how could this happen? And then the next chapter, it's like, new world, none of that mattered, and I'm just like, what was the point of any of that? I spent all of this time caring about these characters, and she even goes and Hillis goes and visits Magoo. Mr. Magoo. You remember that from the first time we talked about this?
Yeah.
She goes and visits him, and he's like, I'm happy now in this world. I'm fine with this house. Everything's fine now. And Hillis is like, oh, sucks for that, but go to sleep. Everything will be fine when you wake up. And it's like, He went through an emotional arc of coming to understanding and like accepting his situation and like being okay to continue living, and then it just gets erased. The agency of literally everyone, including Hillis, is nothing. No one has any agency. Technically, Hillis has agency when she goes back in time and rewrites history. But like, until she gets to that point, she didn't have agency either, because it's the original God who's directing her to go and do these things and complete these tasks. She falls in love with Axion, and she's like, oh, he took care of me in my past lives. I really do love him. She comes to this understanding and then gets her emotions removed. I just chapter to chapter just became more pissed off to what was going on.
But at least we got to see Axion beat up his elderly parents.
Yeah, that was fun. His mom is a bitch.
His mom's kind of hot.
I think I erased this from my memory when it ended the first time, because I had these when we were like, okay, we're going to do these revisit episodes. And I was like, oh yeah, Solitary Lady. I really like that. Right. Yeah. I really like that. And then I reread these chapters and I was like, what the fuck is this?
I like it, but it's real edgy. It's way up its own butt on the lore. And as much as I felt like I was going to criticize Kill the Villainess for being like the hot topic edgy teen thing, this is where it really was. This is where it was hiding the whole time.
I think it jumped the shark when she lost her emotions.
Yeah, I agree with you.
up until then, it was like, okay, there's tragic stuff going on, but there's a light in the dark. She's got Axion and she's loving him. And then she loses her emotions. And for a little bit, it was like, okay, this could be okay. Like, she lost her emotions. He still loves her. He's trying to cope with the fact that she doesn't love him anymore, even though, like, she still does care about him, even though she doesn't love him, because she doesn't have emotions, but she still has this capacity to
I value
care about
you
what's going on.
25% more than other people.
But then she's like, oh, you're in a lot of pain. I'm going to erase your memory. So she like erases his memory of her. And then, of course, it doesn't really take. He wakes up and he's like, wait, who's Hillis Inodin? What? And then he goes, oh my God, a headache. Oh no, that person. I needed that lasted all of 2 chapters. And then we rush to the end and the universe gets reset.
I don't have a lot to say except I think this one got away from him.
Yeah.
I still like it. The recommendation score has gone down. The content and ideas score has gone down. The pacing and structure has gone down.
I almost feel like if you just replaced the last like 3 chapters, and maybe it needed to be a little bit longer, but like it was I think the last 3 chapters that for me just completely threw the rest of it out. Because up until then it was like there's drama occurring, there's bad things, but like there's recovery that can happen here. There's like we can still win the day kind of stuff happening. Even with her losing her emotions, it could have been like, okay, you finally reconstructed this divine into a whole, and so I get erased from existence, but you get reset. And so it goes back one more time or something like there's something there that makes it feel like even if things were reset, you've still got something going on that's connecting you to it, but they just erased literally everything that happened.
Yeah, I think they might have written themselves into a corner.
Maybe.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what they were going for. It just smacks of that person who's way too in love with their own OC and has to got some attention for writing it, and now they have to finish it, and they're done now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, I feel like she starts behaving. So I'll put it this way. I started reading probably from about chapter 80. And then she was behaving in a way that didn't make sense to me because she was being incredibly reckless. She was murdering people in the street in front of people and then teleporting away to torture more people and then teleporting away and then murdered another person. And I was like, I'm going to go back a little further. Maybe I don't remember what was going on here. And it's, yeah, I don't know. I think it got away from him. That's all I can really say is it's interesting that we chose these two to do this episode on, because what a balancing act of Kill the Villainess really needs the end to work, and
Solitary Lady really ruined the whole thing.
Yeah, man. It's a shame that one never got a 3rd season. Yeah, that's
well, I didn't do it on purpose. These are literally just the first 2 that we covered that have ended since we covered them.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I'd throw this one out entirely, and I know this is dancing around the rubric, but like in my personal preference, it went from like A to B tier. Probably made like a C tier. Like if this were just an anime, like this is one of the dozens of anime I watched in the 90s that were all trying to capture that Evangelion, Cowboy Bebop, Serial Experiments Lain. They were all trying to capture that magic. Everybody had a big idea about some fancy world with all this philosophical nonsense in it, and couldn't quite pull it together.
Okay, so we can recommend this to people, but what they have to do is they have to read to chapter 120 and then act as if it got canceled all of a sudden. And then just be like, oh, it's so disappointing that got canceled. We never got to see the end. I feel like it was so close to ending and they just canceled it. What the hell?
If this author was like a total baller, what they would have done was then it resets, starts all over again. Has to figure out a different way to do it.
Oh, like literally.
Yeah. Starts the whole thing over again.
Do it differently this time. You could keep it going forever.
What was that dumb anime from the Was it the 90s, early 2000s? The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Yeah.
It really had like that one episode that just repeated over and over.
I think, yeah. I don't think I ever actually watched that.
I didn't like it, but I had a friend who was super into it, and he thought that was just like the boldest choice anyone could ever make. And I was like, yeah, okay.
So it does look like there is another series from this author. I don't know if this is an adaptation, but there is. It looks like they actually started this one before Solitary Lady ended. Let me see. Yeah, this one's an adaptation as well. The Blooming Baby Boss Lady.
Well, that sounds like a lighter adventure.
Yeah. It's rated lower.
So I don't know. You got your ear to the ground. How did people feel about this?
Well, it's rated at just about an 8. So
okay.
Now the question is, how many people actually finished it? That have rated it that way.
Because I'll tell you, this is also the opposite of the Kill the Villainous in Another Way, where I think like this looks cool. I like the art for this one.
Yeah. I almost feel like most of these ratings must have been from before it ended. And then they didn't come back and re-rate it. Because really, I can't emphasize enough just how much, like, it was so good. It was so good up until the end. Like, I was really... I was so invested in everybody's story. Like, Terzo, oh my God, you really did all of this. Like, I mean, he obviously is, a shithead and an idiot, but like, he really just wanted to destroy the world because the person he loved got ripped away from him. And he did not care who he was taking down with it. He only cared that Violetta and Mago were safe. And he didn't really care if they were happy, just that they were safe. And like the relationship that Axion has with his family, and like how he like literally does not give a shit about his feckless father, who is just like a pet for his mom. But his mom loves his dad so much and like cannot stand to see him hurt, to the point that she would screw everybody else to keep him safe. And then you've got the Parvanons, the ice ones, who are like just a family of shitheads, and like get the least consequential ending ever. He just gets stabbed by Hillis's stepsister, half sister, whatever the heck she is, who got like possessed, which that never got explained. I have no idea what was happening there, and she doesn't even show up in like the finale. So I have no idea what was up with anything that had to do with her. But like, there's so much going on here, and they just go, yeah, none of that mattered. Really, yeah, just chapter 120. That, hey, so we're gonna cover Solitary Lady. Unfortunately, it got canceled at chapter 120. Felt like it was really close to the end, but you know, it was really good. There was a lot of interesting things going on, lots of drama.
This is the beauty of being an anime fan or a comic book fan. Any of these, well, I don't know. This happens with TV shows too. I was going to say, it's like any medium where like a very small team produces it, like, and has creative control and can just go nuts. But yeah, this happens with TV shows. I wouldn't say it's like quite as bad as like the end of Game of Thrones or anything like that. But
That's fair, because Game of Thrones, like, they screwed up the entire last 2 seasons.
I stopped watching it like probably when it went all the way away from the books, probably like season 4 or 5.
Yeah, but this one, like, this would be like if they were doing Game of Thrones perfectly up until the second to last episode, and then it all fell apart there. And you'd like,
and then Jon
it was
stabs
obviously
Dany.
What?
Then Jon just stabs Dany.
Right.
I didn't know we were going to be burning cities in this war.
With Game of Thrones, it's like everybody was sort of already turned off by the time they got to the end.
Yeah.
But with this, it was like the buildup was so big getting to the end. And you're like, oh my God, there's so much and so much drama and so interesting. And
do you think, so I would say you're on, it shouldn't have reset. They should have had to live with consequences.
It would have been more interesting. I think the resetting was probably along the lines of like, we need to give everybody, like you said, we need to give everybody a happy ending.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can't give people a happy ending when they had no beginning. You reset stuff. They didn't have a beginning to be happy from.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all a dream kind of ending.
And as far as I know, Hillis is the only one who actually remembers what happened at the very end.
I think Axion at least remembers Hillis.
Well, yeah, to an extent. They make a point to be like, oh, he's got a hole in his heart that he has a longing for someone he doesn't even know. And it's like, okay, but like he doesn't actually remember anything. No one has a concept of the fact that this world used to be filled with magic and it's not now. And like they already did all this stuff when they had magic. So
it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out ending.
I almost feel like we should rate this twice. Like no. Rate it once without the ending and then
only get one.
And then drop all the scores down 1 or 2 for the ending. No, the art stuff doesn't get dropped down because of the ending, but everything else does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's clear how upset I am about this. I wonder, did I post anything about this when it ended the first time?
I don't remember. I feel like I remember if you had a strong opinion.
Let's see. I'll search Discord. Nope. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Solitary Lady is also over. What's going on here? Nope, I didn't say anything about it, so.
I post the meme of that kid. It's like my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the first time it ended, I just wasn't paying enough attention. So.
I love webcomics like this. I love it when something just goes completely off the rails. I have no idea why they did it this way. The only thing I could think, when you do something where you have everything reset or you go back to the beginning, it was all a dream, all that kind of stuff, you couldn't find a way out. And
I think you can do that, but you have to have some kind of consequences. So either the person who had the dream, they remember it and they like learned a lesson or something like that. Like you have to take something from it, right?
I wonder, this is something that as I've read more light novels and I've started doing web novels on Words About Books, these authors, and this is a trend that's been happening in the industry for a while, but these authors in specific, because of the platforms they publish on, are in constant conversation, literal, actual conversation with their fans.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, any ending she could have given that kept consequences was going to piss some section of the fandom off. And maybe there was just a reluctance to do that.
I mean, I sort of feel like it's okay to piss off the section of your audience that is brain dead.
Well,
Just wants a happy ending, even if that happy ending came at the cost of nothing.
I could see it going both ways. I mean, maybe this is the ending she always intended. Maybe
I should say it wasn't no cost. Hillis obviously suffered for a long time, but like,
not the one I wanted to see suffer. But no, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is an ending where they're trying to please the fans. And if you try to please everybody all the time, you just wind up with this weak milquetoast ending. But
yeah.
But fans, I've seen the Bato comments. Some of these people are unhinged. And I mean, making content online, it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you make a dumb podcast about books or something, like I've still been called a bunch of names and stuff, and it's like I'm a middle-aged man with a job, and I genuinely don't care what anyone says on the internet. But I wasn't always like that. If I had been making stuff when I was in my teens or early 20s, even probably mid to late 20s, I don't know if I'd want to hear it. I don't know if I'd want to hear it from the I forget his name, the Ice Sky fandom, or
Ice Poseidon? The streamer?
No, the guy with the white hair in this one.
Oh, the Parvanon, Christian.
Parvanon, yeah. I don't know if I'd want to hear it from the people that wanted his redemption arc. I don't know if I'd want to hear it from so it's just like, he's still there. You shut up. You're fine. I took it all the way. I gave you all the emotions, and I took them all back.
Yeah, right. It's funny you mentioned that, because I did, I don't know how many people know this. I think I've talked about it a little bit, but I did Minecraft Let's Plays and some other video games many years ago. And, I had a decent number of people who watched. Nothing crazy, but like, I've never really had people, pissed off at what I'm doing. So,
well, it depends what you do. If you're telling a story, people get invested in the characters.
That's true.
If you're doing a podcast, and I think you guys, like, with Shonen Jumping the Gun, only reading one chapter, and then with other episodes, we kind of, it also helps when you talk for 3 hours. You really got to be a diehard to listen to the whole thing. But no, I haven't had anybody call me like super names, but I've had a bunch of people in my comments yelling at me about Donald Trump. There's one guy who's been I think I told you about this. There's one guy who's been following me around from like video to video because I did not hate the new Dune movie. Specifically because of the lack of like lore accurate misogyny. And he
thinks it's woke.
he thinks it's woke, and he thinks I'm woke because I didn't hate the movie, and it's like,
I mean, let's be fair. You are woke.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, if
We don't think that's a bad thing.
I've never referred to myself as woke, but
No, and I think it's bad if you do.
yeah,
I think you can only say that if you are in certain ethnic groups.
well, I know it was a thing that came out, especially around the Black Lives Matter time, about being, aware of racial injustice and stuff like that. And I've never used that term in association with myself.
White men aren't allowed to label themselves as such.
I would say I probably support a bunch of stuff people consider to be woke, but like, I make fun of Joe Biden, I make fun of Hillary Clinton, I made fun of like Donald Trump and all them. I wouldn't say I'm like a both sideser. I've been pretty open that I'm like a liberal and I vote Democrat and stuff. But like, yeah, that guy follows me around and he puts like Trump on all my videos, and I'm like, do you think like there was a time where I would rise to that?
You delete those, right?
Yeah, I don't.
See, that's the kind of comment
puts
that I would
it
delete.
with his real name and his real picture, and I want to preserve that for posterity.
I think that's. I mean, you're not wrong. That's fair, but also like that's the kind of thing where you're not discussing the actual content here,
That's true.
So
well, I think we
worthless.
said something on that podcast about like words about books endorses Kamala Harris, and he was like Trump.
Okay.
And I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit. But no, I've had people be like, I can't even. I find it hard to believe you can even read. Was one I got. And I was like, okay, I don't know. Like, you could disagree with the way I interpret the book, but like, did I not?
You are interpreting the book.
Did I not demonstrate that I read it as I talked about what happened for hours? I don't know. But I don't know. That's just a little sample of like I do a podcast about books, and these are people who are like supposed to be like the guys hanging out in coffee shops reading Dostoevsky. Like, these are supposed to be the chillest Ambien taking people in the world, and they're still like all in your face all the time. And the weird thing is, the communities that you would think would be more energetic, like the romantasy people and everything, they just get such a kick out of the fact that like a dude is talking about it.
Yeah.
And then all these other guys.
Let's be
like,
fair. I'd be pissed off too if I just spent 30 hours reading Dostoevsky.
Yeah, that's true. What do you mean life has no meaning? Would we say Solitary Lady is the Anna Karenina of... I think that's Tolstoy. I don't know my Russians.
One of those Russian dudes who writes way too much.
Yeah.
There was an interesting thing when I was going back to listen to parts of these the previous episodes. This was actually Solitary Lady was the first one. I said we're gonna have to come back and revisit this one because there's so much going on here and we liked it so much. And this is a quote from you. I'm willing to do an update episode at some point. So here we are.
Yeah, I was willing, and I did it.
I think that we should rip off the Band-Aid and rubric this.
All right. You have a hard time rating things low. I'm well practiced at this.
I'm going to try and be fair here and keep in mind, like, balance this between the whole thing versus the ending.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's fair to just write something off completely because the ending sucks.
I would say...
It's definitely an important part of it, but the journey is important as well.
I actually don't know if this is going... Yeah, let's get into it. I think you might be surprised at my answer.
So for content and ideas, Damn. I think I have to give this a 5. Shit.
So I'm at a 3, and I'm going to explain.
Okay.
I'll do a couple, like, maybe we should do a couple of categories at once here, because I'll explain sort of where I'm thinking about distributing my points. I think for me, content and ideas, I'm subtracting the points for plot development. I think the ending does kind of undo a lot of work that was done in plot development. So I want to go low on content and ideas because I think the ideas were denied a conclusion.
I'm very much in this exact same headspace.
Characters, I'm going to go for a 5 because while I do think the plots were unresolved, I think the character writing shows through at every stage.
I actually feel like I'm sort of reversed on this, but for the reasons that you've just explained.
We could do it that way.
I feel like the plots, the content and ideas were so original, and they developed them so well right up until the end, which just threw it away. Which to that extent, I want to be like, this should be a 5, but I'm gonna make it a 4 because of the ending.
Where do you? Yeah, so I think that's fair. I think we're both on the same page there. Do you want to blame that on content writing, like on plotting, or do you want to blame that on sort of character interactions?
I sort of want to go lower on characters because I feel like some of the characters, their motivations and ignoring the actual ending, their conclusions were very unsatisfying. Like Christian, for example. Like we got a little bit of like, why is he such a big jerk? Because he's felt pushed aside and ignored and everything. Like he built up this resentment for so long and everything. Like they've definitely explained it, but it didn't feel satisfying and realistic.
That makes sense to me. I'm willing to flip this. I'm willing to go 5 on content and ideas and 3 on characters for the reasons I outlined. I feel that the denial of a resolution needs to be, I don't want to say punished, but that needs to show in one of these 2 categories.
Right. So I would have actually, like, if I ignore the ending, I would give content and ideas a 5, and I would give characters a 4. Because a lot of the characters are well developed and interesting.
I'll tell you
their
what,
interactions are, but then the ending for content and ideas is where I would take one off for the ending. I don't think the characters necessarily does that. So where I'm currently at, I'm sort of at a 4 and a 4.
I think I can agree with you. I can do a 4 and a 4. But then pacing and structure, I'm going to take it out of structure for the end.
Yep.
And that's going to go down to a 3.
I think that's the way to go. Pacing and organizational structure are effective, but there's room for improvement. It may have been too fast, too slow, or unintentionally confusing.
I think it was definitely unintentionally confusing.
Yeah. Which is really unfortunate because I do think that the pacing and structure, they did a really good job through the rest of it. Like, reading it week to week, like, things made sense and they moved along at a decent pace. And there were parts where maybe it was going too fast and things weren't explained, but then there were other parts where they did slow it down and explain things, and then maybe things were a little bit... So, like, there was a bit of a roller coaster there, but, like, overall, you might go, oh, this is a 4 for pacing and structure. But then, like, the ending just threw everything away.
Yeah, this bullet train maintained a consistent 200 kilometers an hour until the very end where it hit a wall.
Derailed.
Yeah.
Into the side of a mountain.
I can live with that.
So we're going to go 4-3-4.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think we're being very fair with the way that this
try not
totally
to
failed at the end.
Yeah, try not to take away the good work that was done.
Right.
Because that is the part of the point of the rubric. Is it's kind of like you're grading the author and the artist. And, I can't say that this is a bad author. She has talent. She writes well. Just did not stick the landing.
Yeah.
And that counts for a lot, unfortunately.
This is like one of those Olympic gymnast floor routines where they just were nailing it over and over again, and then on the last flip, they just landed straight on their head.
Blew their leg apart, yeah. and then how do you, as a judge, how do you be like, no, it was going great until she crippled herself. Now I got to fail you too. So,
Well, now we can talk about something that wasn't great the whole time, which is romance.
You want to do romance? Did we do romance before?
We didn't actually. We didn't do romance the first time, and I think that was fair. But given that the romance was so integral to the plot in the second half, I think we have to include it this time.
Okay, might actually help it.
I don't think it's going to, because I'm going to go with a 3.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Let's see what that does. That does actually help it.
Oh, okay.
Given it adds more points to the board, so
I think the thing with this romance is that like there's for so long they're going, we can't, like Hillis is like, oh, I love him, he took care of me, but also I can't be with him because I'll burden him with all my problems. And then Axion is just sort of like, the reason he loves Hillis seems superficial. And I don't believe it's superficial, but it seems superficial because it's like he keeps taking care of her. And so I almost feel like it's that that thing where it's like, oh, I'm in love with you because you need someone to take care of you and I want to take care of someone, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's less about who Hillis is as a person and more about the situations that she's in.
I think it's tropey. I think it's cute. Like the end is cute. But I don't know if I think it's interesting at the end. They're both kind of almost children again. Is that
15?
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I would read
But she's also an immortal god who has memories from 8 previous lives.
Yes.
However long it took her to rebuild the world as it is.
Yeah. So. That's my OC, all right. It's my DeviantArt OC. But, yeah, it's I'd say it's cute. I wouldn't say it's romantic. I'd say it's cute.
Yeah. I don't think the romance throughout the entire series is bad, but I do think that a lot of it is superficial. And so like I won't go lower because it's not bad, but I also won't go higher because it sort of doesn't make me actually care. Like I care to the extent that like things are happening to these people and I've gotten to the point where I care about them. So like I want to see them together and happy, and I like seeing them happy together. But like there's not enough meat on the bones of the romance for me to like internalize it for real.
Yeah.
It doesn't help me grow. It doesn't have enough protein.
It doesn't have what plants crave. Yeah, I'm good with the 3 too. I think it's fine. I think it's there. We went from not considering it as a factor to considering it as a factor. That's a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, art competency.
I'm at a 4. Not blown away, but I like it.
We gave it a 4 last time, and the art didn't change. So I think keeping that score is fair. If anything, the artistic flourish of it, there was even more of at the end, as far as like
I was gonna
effects and
say,
framing. And
I went up to a 5 on artistic flourish.
okay.
Now
I think that's fair.
I'm gonna say my reasons for that are cheesy.
Okay. I will. Well, before you go into that, I will say I'm not going to go up to a 5 on Autistic Flourish. I feel like they did do more towards the end, but it wasn't anything enough that would make me go up higher.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to. So why did you do that?
I thought when she started stabbing people with the thorns and giant roses exploded from their bodies,
Okay. Yeah.
that was both a great way to keep the rating down on the gore and still pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then 2, the mother-son beam struggle. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought that was really stupid, actually. I thought that was actually really stupid, but it crossed back around full circle and became cool.
This is so stupid. It's awesome.
This arrogant young man is shooting a beam at his old mother who's like holding a pipe. Stereotypical, like,
Missing a pinky.
yeah, missing a pinky. She's got that Yakuza energy. Yeah, she's, that was so dumb and I loved it.
And then the dad, who is literally a non-character. He's literally just a prop.
It's so edgy. He's got all the dark crystals pointed at his throat.
So what do you think for personal preference?
A 4. It was dumb, but I liked it.
So I'm going to go with a 3.
I get that.
It's literally just because of the ending. If I would have had this as a 4 if they had literally canceled it right before the end. There was some stuff near the end, like not, in the last 5 chapters or whatever, but like things near the end where I was like, that's a choice. Okay. But like nothing that was like taking me out of it. And then literally erasing everything, all the consequences, all the character growth, everything's gone. And I'm just like, okay, well, I had a time with this, didn't I?
Yeah.
That was a time that was had. Which also means, how can we recommend this to people? I don't.
I said it's a weak recommendation to genre fans.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
Yeah.
And with anybody, you have, if you recommend this to people, you have to caveat it. You have to go, hey, this is really good, but just keep in mind that the ending isn't satisfying.
Yep.
You'll have a great time until the end. Maybe consider don't finish it.
Like I said, it's not the worst ending I've ever read, but it is a cop-out.
I think part of the problem here is that worse endings are attached to worse series. This is almost worse because it was good to start with.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of people like The Sopranos, like fade to black moment. Like, I'd put it kind of on par with that. Like the fade to black moment where it's like, yeah, I understand the logic of it. I understand what you were trying to do. It's a cop out.
Yeah.
It was a way to avoid having to commit to an actual ending.
So last time we both rated this 73.
It went up.
You have rated this a 74.
Yep.
Somehow.
Congratulations. Through the power of statistics.
I went down.
If you take out rubric, or if you take out the romance, I went down.
Let's see what happens. Romance. So if we compare it 1-to-1 with last time, yes, you've gone down to a 72, and I'm down even further to 65. I guess the fact that there's romance in it brings it up. The romance in the second half, it adds to the score.
Hey,
Interesting.
there's something to be said for landing a plane. You finished a series.
Well, this plane is certainly on the ground.
It is there. Yep.
I think all the passengers survived.
Yeah.
I don't think the plane can fly again.
No. No, I don't think she destroyed her reputation with me or anything. I don't think I'd refuse to read this author again, but
Yeah.
I might be suspicious of how invested I get.
Right. All right. Well, there it is. We have now officially completed 2 more series.
Hell yeah.
How's it feel?
I have no idea how many we've completed.
Let's see here. We've got. I'm going to count The Villainess Lives again as completed. Technically we weren't done when we did that, but it's so close to the end that
Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
although I guess we see here the score could change with the ending, but
Yeah.
I don't think it does with that one. Like I said, the ending wasn't anything special. It didn't make me go, "Oh my god, this is amazing," or "Oh, this is so terrible." But it's fine. So let's see. Kill the Villainous is now over. That was our first episode. Second and third episodes, and fourth, fifth. Those are all. So our second, third, fourth, and fifth episodes are still all ongoing.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Our after that concubine walkthrough is actually done, I think. But I didn't keep reading it after that. It's still on my list. It's something I'm interested in. That will probably be what we need to cover next for our next revisit.
Okay.
Because I do want to finish that, but I might need an episode for me to commit to it.
Yeah, I get that.
After that, we covered Villainous Turns the Hourglass. That was our first one that was completed when we covered it. Let's see. Master Villainous is still going on. Fantasy of a Stepmother is still going on. Talented Maid. That might have gotten canceled. I have no idea what's happening there. I haven't seen a new chapter for that in a long time. And then Solitary Lady was after that. And let's see. That's still going on. Princess's Doll Shop ended. Talked to Moon a bit about that. That'll only need a couple minutes to cover because that's a similar situation to Solitary Lady.
It's been a trend. I haven't liked the end of most comics.
Yeah.
For the past 2 years.
Let's see. That's still going. That's still going. That's still going. That's still going. Who Made Me a Princess? That was over when we covered it. Oh, by the way, you mentioned near the beginning of this episode that we've only covered good stuff. But we literally had an episode where we covered really terrible things.
Yeah, but for the most part.
Which was almost exactly a year ago.
I don't think I hated that. That was the one where we covered the one that I said was like a gender-swapped berserk or something. That was a weird one.
So Savor the Taste, we rated a bit higher. That one wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. But the other two were very bad. On the Emperor's Lap, we rated it a 2. 2 out of 10.
That one was pretty bad. I remember that.
Let's see. Villainous Flips the Script. That, I think, is coming to an end soon. It's probably still going to be a couple months, but I think it's pretty close to ending. Ray Liotta at the Duke's Mansion. That was over when we covered it. Yeah. Yeah, there's most of the stuff that we've covered is not over yet.
That's what it feels like. That's why I said I have no idea how many of these are done, because these things go on for years, though.
Yeah.
So,
well, next time, we're going to let our patrons pick from 3 other series that aren't over. Actually, I'm not sure. So we're going to keep the 3 that we've had on there for a while. Or do you want to drop one of these off of here to spice things up a little bit?
Let's drop it off. Have a showdown.
Let's see what we've got here. I think let's drop off Not So Wicked Stepmother. As much as I want to cover that one, I don't think the episode is going to be as interesting as these other ones.
Okay.
Let's see here. So looking at our list, let's put one on here that is completed. Let's do that. That's a theme. We're doing that theme. We're gonna put on The Villainess is Retiring.
It's the heroin addiction completion arc.
All right, so we've got Surviving Romance, which is a recommendation from Annie. How to Win My Husband Over. God, that's so difficult to say. Which is real depressing. And then The Villainess is Retiring, which is not depressing, but it is complete.
Well, we'll just have to deal with it then.
So like I said, our patrons get to vote on that. So that poll will be up when this episode comes out, and it'll be up there for a week, at which point the winner will be announced on the Discord. And it'll also be on Patreon if you vote there. And all of the tiers get to vote. So if literally all you want to do is vote on these series, you can go on there and sign up at the lowest tier. All right. Well, we did it.
We did it.
We have fully covered the only 2 things that we could cover from the beginning. No, we need to cover Concubine Walkthrough. We need to finish that one off. But we'll save that for next time. All right. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think we hit it pretty hard.
Can you believe we only talked for 43 minutes the first time we did this?
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was like, wow, things have changed. What a rubric does.
Actually, I was going to look at the second episode and see how long that one was. Author of My Own Destiny was our second episode, and that was 46 minutes. So we didn't get on that right away. But we've evolved over time. Up until we had to literally do 2 separate episodes for one series. I guess technically this is a separate episode for these 2 series, but it doesn't get us close to that 5 hours we did for Villainess Lives Again.
Yeah. That was a marathon.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Before we go, we need to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart's a retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. They got all kinds of cool stuff you can't get outside Japan. Our listeners can click the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off their first order. And we want to hear from you. So like I said at the beginning, check out our social media links, which are on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. Our link to our Discord is up there. That's the best place to get a hold of us, but you can also just leave comments on the episode posts up on the website. You can also find a link there for our Patreon, where our supporters get perks, as I mentioned, of getting to vote on what we cover on this series. But they also get a high-quality stereo version of the podcast early, as well as bonus episodes. We've actually got 2 different levels of bonus episodes now. So all tiers get most of the bonus episodes, but then we've got super extra special bonus episodes for our highest tiers. And of course, we have to shout out our patrons. So first and foremost, at our noble tier, we have our marquee, Sir Cake Dwarf. Insert fanfare here. At our reincarnator tier, we've got Moon. And last but not least, at our commoner tier, we've got Kill Hour and Rena. So thank you so much to all our patrons. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the other series on our feed. As Ben mentioned before, we've got Shonen Jump and Gun, where we're checking out the first chapter of manga and making crazy predictions about that. We've actually got some ideas that we're going to try out coming up about checking out more of a series if we either love it or hate it, to see if we're completely off base. So going to explore that a little bit, try something new. That'll come out in probably a couple months. But read the first chapter and record, and then seeing where we're at, we'll go back and either read the next 2 chapters or the full volume, and then come back and record an addendum before the episode comes out. So we'll see if it works. So stay tuned for that. And of course, if you can't get enough of Ben talking about stuff, you can check out his other podcast, Words About Books, which I am behind on. I haven't been going in my work closed our office for a couple of weeks while we're moving, and I haven't been going into the office, and so I'm way behind on all my podcasts.
Oh no!
But I am. I'm driving to North Carolina next week.
Oh.
So I'm planning on getting caught up on everything.
Nice. Yeah, you're missing gold there, I assume.
What did I put out again?
I have no idea, because I was out for the last 2 weeks, so I don't know what's been going on. I assume we recorded a mountain of episodes, but I don't know, maybe for this audience, the interesting one will be there's a Beware of Chicken follow-up, which is a Shinsha web novel, martial arts thing. Animorphs is coming up. I don't know if anybody here likes Animorphs. If you're an elder millennial like me,
Animorphs is crazy.
Animorphs, I never read it as a child, so I'm reading it for the first time as an adult, and I was blown away by how crazy it gets right off the bat.
Yeah, I can't believe it's for children.
It kind of slaps. I'm into it. Like I slept on Animorphs way too long. But yeah, that's what's going on over there. We also got talking about Tolkien, if you care about Tolkien.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a mountain of episodes. Did you have a caladras of episodes?
A caladras. We can't say it. It means red horn. Oh, many THs of Old Norse. Don't worry, we're also doing. So this is a Patreon only thing, but it would interest this audience. I mean, if you want to sign up to be a patron just to get the episode, but I'm gonna do a simple comparison of Frieren and Tolkien as a bonus episode.
Okay.
And the not being able to pronounce the names is what reminded me, because I am aware that all the names in Frieren are German, but I've been listening to Japanese people say them for a long time now, and I keep mispronouncing them in Japanese. I keep saying Aura the Guillotine, Starku, Flamme instead of Flamme.
Our native German speaker got flipped around on those names recently.
Oh, does he like them now?
Did you see that? Well, I don't know about like, but there was it was either a video or something like, or a Tumblr post or something about how all of the Frieren names are just simple descriptors in German.
Oh, yes. It's like Frieren telling the story, and she's naming
Right,
people based on their
right.
roles more than their names.
Because he was pissed off before about like, oh, they're just using these really simple German words, and this is ridiculous. It sounds so ridiculous to a native German speaker. And then someone was like, what if that's the only thing that Frieren can remember? So, yes, this was Warrior who was with me. And that was Mountain that we were at. And that was Magic City that we were and then he's like, oh shit, maybe that's exactly the point, is that she's retelling this thousands of years in the future.
I've been
she can't remember the names.
I've been hesitant to mention to Frieren, or to mention to Frieren. God damn. I've been hesitant to mention to Cake Dwarf where Saruman lives in Lord of the Rings. Over there in Isengard, the Iron Tower. But yeah, they do that.
It's not actually made out of iron, is it?
I don't know. It is black though.
Yeah.
It's next to the River Isen.
Oh, the Iron River.
And I do believe that's called that because there's iron ore near it.
Eisen. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We hope you had a good time. This was fun.
Yeah.
Going back to these, as disappointing.
It worked out well. It was a nice little arc there.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I got to go get some eye drops. My eyes are bloodshot from all the manhwa I've been injecting into them.
'Cause I'll see you again. 'Cause I'll see you again.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
My son is over at his house, and so I thought he was calling about that, but no, he's at my grandfather's. He's not even at home. So, sorry about that. What were you saying? That's a reference to our first episode.
I was trying not to make a Steven Tyler joke.
Hmm?
And I failed.